Welcome to BowTieSecurityGuy After Dark. I am here in my Sancta Sanctorum with Walter Speelman. And he asked to wanted to come over and hang out in my shop and figured we would do the podcast from there. So I had to get some cool fancy microphones. I can't do it as ghetto as Ron and I did it last time. So, Walt, you've had a very interesting kind of career and pivot into cyber. Tell us a little bit about your career and kind of how you got into cyber.
So like you, I'm a graybeard. Cyber wasn't a thing when we started. And the way I actually ended up in it, from my early age, I happened to live in the Bay Area when personal computers were first coming out. My dad, my stepfather at that time, worked at Lockheed, and his engineering buddies, they got some of those first $10,000, PCs and all.
Those are the friends I wanted growing up.
Yeah. So anytime it was like, hey, we're going over. Oh, can I come too? And it was great because we'd go over and I would be sitting there on the computer, doing stuff. And it got to a point where, when I go over, they would just put me on, go get on the computer. And then I would catch them at times watching me, because I was just sitting there, just going at it, seeing what the computer can do, no fear. Let me just push this as far as I can. Ended up, my first computer, finally got one. My first computer was a Commodore VIC-20. And I would sit there all day coding, putting in code. And I remember when, for one of the holidays, one of the gifts I got that I was asking for, was a tape drive. So now,
you're super fancy. At that point.
Man, it's like, wow, I can put in all this code and I can actually save it and then load it back up afterward.
You rich kids had it. You rich kids had everything.
But that was hilarious. It's like, okay, let me rewind it. Let me hit the record. Okay, now tell it to save and, But, so I mean, I've always had my hands on computers from early on, which was really cool. Heck, I remember, at school, we had gotten in the Apple IIe's.
Yeah, Apple made a smart play there, I think.
They did.
They basically went to all the schools and said, we will give you personal computers. Uh-huh. It was kind of a brilliant marketing plan.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
To basically force kids to grow up on Apple. It was really, really smart.
I remember it because I remember, because like I said, I was in the Bay Area when that happened, and we had one computer for the whole class.
Oh, wow.
And it was funny because you could tell the teachers were going, okay, what do we do with this thing? And so they finally, had come up with some ideas and all. And basically, I remember they gave us an assignment. And I don't remember the time frame. I want to say it was like, there was something you had to do. I want to say like once a month because you had, we only had one computer for the whole class.
Right.
So you had to take turns being able to get on the computer. So that's why I remember back, I want to say it was like you had one assignment project to do on the computer a month. Yeah. But then, as I was going through a couple more grades, it got to where, okay, there was an entire computer class now. There was, heck, I still remember, there was a room off the library where they had a whole bunch of Apple IIs, and they had 5 1/4 floppies. We're like, oh, this is sweet. And it got to where, so we created at that school, I still have it to this day. We created the first computer club.
That's kind of awesome.
And I still have it to this day where we made cards and like got our hands on a laminator and made these little computer club cards for everyone to have.
This is the thing in my shop that I have. Let me see if I can grab it. Which is when I was at Disney, I was part of the LucasArts the Industrial Light and Magic Electronics Club, which I still have that little sticker, which was
that is sweet,
which was super cool. And we got to build different stuff and nerd out, which is just that was some of the fun stuff. About Disney. So you did computers, like you kind of grew up on it. How did you turn it into a job?
Well, so what ended up happening there was, I was always doing on the computers. Going through high school and all, if they had a computer class, I was in it. Didn't matter what it was. Didn't matter if I'd already done the class before. It's an elective. And I, learning Pascal on a Trash 80, learning, and then even when I went to college, I remember, being at UCF, and we were the beta class doing C++.
Yeah, they didn't have a cyber program
on the
at that time, right? It didn't exist.
None. So, but ultimately what ended up happening was, while I was going to college, I got a part-time job because, I was like, okay, I need money, because I wanted to upgrade my computer. At that point, I had a 286 with no hard drive. I'm like, I need money to upgrade this computer.
I remember when things were simpler. Where like the only reason I worked was because I wanted to buy like computer parts.
It's like I still remember putting a memory card in that thing that was, just huge. And you had to buy the chips separate and sit there and pop all the chips in to this card, just add, a few hundred K to it.
Right.
But I still remember, cause I had 2 5 1/4 floppies on that one. But I remember when I upgraded the monitor from monochrome to, I bought a 4-color monitor.
That's pretty fancy.
At Walmart, and it was like, oh my gosh, look at this thing. This is incredible. 4 colors.
I think I finally got color when I found one in the trash, and then I pulled it apart and and fixed a capacitor that was bad. That's how I got a lot of stuff when I was younger, because I didn't have really any cash. We were pretty broke. I would say we were like lower class or like barely middle class.
Yeah.
And it was always interesting to me because like people would throw stuff away because nobody knew how to fix stuff. That's how I learned all the electronic stuff. Like, we're sitting in my workshop now, and there's all these different props and electronic stuff and all these different things that I restored, like the slot machine and other stuff. Like, I learned all those skills just by breaking stuff.
Yep.
That's one thing I was having a conversation on the last podcast is I feel like the generation of kids that are going to college now, they're focused so much on passing a test that they don't have the skills to do basic troubleshooting. Yeah. Like they kind of jump right to the textbook answer, which is in the real world, as we know, not really something that happens too often, unfortunately.
Oh yeah. Lots of people are book smart, and then they hit the real world and it's like, oh crap. It's like, it's a little bit different here. But yeah, so like I said, I got a job while I was going to school. And ironically, it tied well with my mom because I was doing drafting. So we were doing drafting work. We were subcontract work. Did a lot of our work for United Telephone of Florida.
Yeah.
We're basically maintaining drawings and all. But they had a small CAD group at the time. And over time, I started getting more involved with the CAD stuff, because I'm still doing the computers nonstop all the time outside of work. And the vice president of the company, he was the system administrator. And, of course, he's getting busier and busier and not having time. And, I guess he saw the aptitude in me and started kind of taking me under his wing, doing stuff. So I ended up we had a mixed environment of Unix as well as PCs, and I ended up becoming the system administrator for that environment. Got into doing physical networking there also because we actually had to move floors one time, so I got involved with all that. And really, I think the big kicker for me is they were putting in a time clock one day, and they needed a long cable run to put the time clock towards the back, but it had to hook to the computer because back then we were just starting to get into networking at all. Had to hook it up to the computer up front for the person who was handling the time, and so they needed a long serial cable. And I'm like, at that point I had already been playing around with and building my own null modem cables because we would fly simulators, and you could hook two null modem two computers together with a null modem cable and fly head to head. Because we didn't have networking, multiplayer games. That was the best you got, was a head to head.
That's a good point. Yeah, it's been a while since I've even thought about that. Like, I remember LAN parties, right? Like you would carry your desktop to somebody's house.
Yeah, exactly. But you'd hook onto a network.
Yeah.
We were doing this because we had a network, it was BNC connectors and all,
right.
But none of the games at that point supported doing anything like that.
They were so rudimentary too at that early stage. It was kind of interesting.
So I'm sitting there one day, they finally got the cable in, and I'm back in the back area, where they're going to put the time clock in. I'm laying on the floor with a soldering gun, sitting there, just going at putting this cable on there, soldering the tip on there. And he walks up to me and he looks down at me and he just kind of gives a smirk. He's like, it's like watching a pig in the mud.
Right. Because you're just having so much
fun. And I'm like, this is just fun, and it's like, I look back I really credit him. His name was Russ. I really credit him he was the one that ultimately turned me into IT as a profession.
Right.
To actually get paid for doing it was because of him. And from there, I was doing, all the IT work for the place, and then went on. My subsequent jobs after that were all IT. Based as I moved around through a few companies.
When did you make the pivot into, when was your first cyber gig?
So first dedicated cyber gig was with the company I'm at now. They had our VP at the time. He could see the writing on the wall that cyber is becoming a larger, more dedicated thing.
Yeah.
And he basically decided he was going to take his organization and kind of split it into two pieces, with one of those pieces being dedicated to cyber. And it was at that point, my boss calls me up one day and says, hey, our VP's looking for you. I'm like, oh, crap. Why?
What did I do?
What'd I do or not do? This isn't good. But I call him up and he's like, hey, we're starting up this cyber stuff, and I would love to have you, in the IAM realm on this.
Nice.
And of course, he was one of those leaders, like you, who's like, I'll follow you wherever you want to go. I have absolute trust and faith,
I appreciate that. I always feel like, as a leader, that's one of my biggest things, is I want my people to feel like I have their back.
Yeah.
And know that I will fight for them kind of inherently.
Yeah.
And that's one of those things where I feel like a lot of leaders are just so focused on their own career, they forget the most important aspect, which is growing their team's careers.
Yeah.
Because that's where you get that undying loyalty, right? That's where you get those people who are like, hey, where are you going? I have a leader now who's like that. I was working an incident it was like 2:00 in the morning. Now I'm kind of a weird executive where I won't leave my team to do stuff by themselves. So it's 2:00 in the morning and I'm on the call with them, just hanging out, kind of just keeping them company. Just we're having fun. We're chatting while we're working on the issue, trying to solve our problem. And my boss messages me at 2:00 in the morning and says, "Hey, do you need me to relieve you?" He's like, "I can't really do any of the technical stuff, but I'm happy to come hang out with the team." And I was like, I've never had another leader that was like me in that regard, where they're like, "Hey, it's 2 a.m. I'm going to come hang out." This guy's a senior director.
Yeah.
I thought that and I literally said, "I just want you to know that one comment, I will ride or die with you." Like wherever we're going. And that's where that's where I know people miss out on, because that kind of loyalty and that camaraderie that is missing in a lot of places.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, finding that, I think you're right. It's more rare to find that.
Yeah.
From talking to people, but it kind of goes back to that old phrase I've heard of, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Yeah.
No, I would agree with that.
That's what makes the difference. And yeah, I mean, somebody like that where they're invested in me, then I'm invested in them.
Right. And invested in my success.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the big thing for me, is my favorite leaders were the ones that backed me up and wanted to see me succeed more than they wanted to see their own growth and their own potential, right? That was more important to them than anything else. And I think that's the best type of leader. But I feel like that type of leader is, I don't want to say like dying out, but I feel like I don't know whether it's society that is shaping these people or if it's that no one's ever taught how to lead. I always say that my bad experiences with leaders is what made me a good leader, because I learned what not to do.
Yeah. I think it's a combination of both.
Yeah.
I think, especially in technical realms, we're so hard driven of go, perform.
Yeah.
And to take time to think about other people and invest in other people, it's time consuming.
For sure.
And if you're doing that, you have to take a back seat, to yourself to spend time on that. I've heard people say, the difference between a manager and a leader is a manager's going through the checkbox, of things that need to get done. I've got to have this conversation. I got to, HR says I got to do this. I got to do the performance review. Check. Done.
Yeah.
But they're still on what they're doing and still thinking about themselves, where a leader is kind of the opposite of, yes, those minimum things I got to do. Yeah, I do those because I have to. That's part of my job. But it's the investment in people, the relationships, spending time with people. It's not easy, to do that.
Oh, it's totally not. Like, this week alone, I've been incredibly busy, and I called my people like later in the, on lunch and said, "Hey, you got a minute? Sorry, things have been crazy." Or I canceled a meeting specifically just so I can make time for my team.
Yeah.
Because they needed me, or they just needed to chat.
Yeah.
I always joke that like being a leader is kind of like a part-time therapist, part-time parent, and and you're also their buddy, and you somehow also have to be a boss, right?
Yeah.
So it's like there's this delicate balancing act where you can't be their buddy and like not hold them accountable, but you also don't like. I think I said something that was very interesting. There's a new person who joined my team, and they're used to a leader who's very like more kind of like, kind of when they make a mistake, they're on it, right? And they're like, "How did you do this? Why would you make such a mistake?" And I was like, "Well, you're an engineer. All I have to do is point it out, and you're going to beat yourself up a billion times harder than I ever will.
Yeah.
Because I'm an engineer, so I know exactly what I do when somebody says, hey, why did this thing happen?
Yeah.
I end up over analyzing it, getting in my head and kind of doing those things. So like you also work in vice president or president now of the local ISC Squared chapter?
Vice president.
Awesome. Like, how did that come to play? Like, it's not a, it's like a second job that you don't get really paid for, you know?
Yeah,
like,
it is. But there's a bunch of us doing it. So that's what makes it a little easier to do is we're all contributing. That one ended up actually coming around. So this goes back to my old CISO. Again, I've been doing IT since 1990.
Yeah.
Getting paid for it. I've been doing it further back, but actually getting paid for it since 1990. And the CISO at my company was like, you need to get your CISSP. It's like, really? He's like, yeah, you've got the experience, you've got the background. Because all of us were doing cyber before cyber became its own thing.
Right.
It was just one of the many hats that we would have to wear. Yeah. Because you kind of had to do everything.
Well, there was no cyber team. You just you had to do it.
Exactly. So, and that's why I always tell people who are looking to get into the industry is hone your IT skills and go into a small to medium-sized business where you are wearing multiple hats. Cyber is going to be one of those hats that you have to wear.
It's just part of the job, especially in IT as you're learning those things. And I feel the core fundamental skills that you learn, troubleshooting, even basic networking type things. I can't tell you how many times I've used those skills during an incident. Where I go, okay, the attacker is doing X, Y, Z. Okay, how are they doing that? Why aren't we hitting this timeout? Why isn't the firewall rejecting it? Yeah. Where else are they going? Right.
Yep. And because you start pinpointing, you start thinking, of this logical environment in your head, and you start pinpointing, okay, if they're coming in here, then that means that this is keeping them out over here, and you start isolating.
Yeah. Yeah. It allows you to fine tune kind of your search. It also allows you to make your queries and things when you're going into Splunk and other data sources, like Datadog or something, and you're digging for events, you know where to go and know where to pinpoint. And that's just not taught unless you take a networking course or something. Most of the cyber degrees and the people that I've talked to in the last interview panels that I did when I was hiring made that kind of very clear, is that basic troubleshooting is just gone.
Yeah.
And I feel like, and I had talked a little bit on the last podcast. What are your thoughts on that? Like, do you see that more and more where basic troubleshooting is kind of a difficult task for people to do?
They're not familiar with it, and it's not that they don't have, the ability to do it.
Right,
They do. And I kind of look back at it as, when you're teaching a class in school, you're limited on how much you can do.
Yeah.
I do know, I remember one of our interns at one time who was going to school, and he was in a class, and his professor was trying to help them with this specific area. And he would purposely go into a lab, he would break something.
Oh, God.
And then he would turn around and go, here's what the user called in as their problem.
Yeah.
So from that standpoint, it was good because he was trying to get them to think about troubleshooting. But it was hilarious too, because the intern, he had been with us, doing a bunch of PC LAN support. And this was the difference between book knowledge and real world.
Yeah.
And he walked in based on the problem the professor told him the user called in, walked out within a few minutes to go, it was, hey, the user can't print.
Yep.
Okay. walked in, a few minutes later, walks out with a printout, goes, here, user can print right now. And the professor's response was, well, what was wrong? And he goes, I don't know, but it's fixed. And he said, the professor was like, no, you've got to be able to tell me what's wrong.
Yeah.
And he had learned from us in the field, that we told him, somebody says they can't print. We don't have time to play Let's Dissect the World.
Right.
Rip out the print driver, reinstall the print driver, check it, because 95% of the time that resolves it.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what he did in this lab. Well, come to find out, the professor finally told him what he had done. He had gone in and restricted the time that the user can print to like 1 minute of the day.
Oh, when he blew out the print profile.
Well, when he blew out the printer, reinstalled it, got rid of that problem,
Yeah.
And I laughingly joked to him. I said, if your professor's really giving you a hard time, tell him to give me a call. I'll talk to him about the real world. If we see an ongoing issue, we're going to go spend time on it. But our first reaction is, I've got a stack of work to do. People, needing me at their systems. I got to move as fast as I can. So I'm going to do basic troubleshooting steps.
Yeah.
And then we get deeper. I remember another time where we were troubleshooting a system, a problem, and we were seeing it on multiple systems. It's like, okay, there's something going on here.
Right.
And so we were trying to figure out, what's happening. And we weren't seeing a consistency with it. So we ended up on that one, basically partnering with the network team, and we started doing packet captures.
Yeah.
And ultimately, long story short, it was a great partnership because we went around testing it in multiple locations to see, okay, is it happening in a particular area and all? And ultimately narrowed it down to, we had some new computers coming in that had a newer version of a TCP/IP driver. We had to downgrade the TCP/IP driver because the new version was causing problems.
There were so many weird things like that I saw, just in my career in IT. I started off in the help desk and just doing the basic troubleshooting stuff. And some of the things that would solve problems just made no sense, right? You just go, I have no idea how it fixed it, but it did. And you would remember it too, right? And you would then add it to whatever knowledge base. It's like, yeah, this is completely counterproductive to how it should work. But if you do X, Y, Z, it'll totally work. And I'll do my best not to knock over more things in the shop.
But back to my CISSP was like, you've already got all the experience.
Might as well get it.
And let's go get it.
Yeah.
And so I went and got it. So long story coming around to it, that's how I ended up pursuing my CISSP with ISC2. And as soon as I got that, that was in 2016, the ISC2's annual security congress.
Have I been saying
conference
ISC squared incorrectly?
No. It was no. So I'm actually proud of myself. I'm saying it properly now. No, they rebranded.
Oh, did they?
Yes, they used to be ISC squared.
But I love that.
Well, and that's because, and I can never say it right. It's IISSCC.
Yeah.
So they just took the first letters of all the words for the company, said ISC squared.
Well, see, now I like it even more, and now they've rebranded it.
Well, they ended up rebranding it to ISC2 because that's how most people. So I can't put parentheses in a domain name.
Right. That's how most people read it, right?
Correct.
Right. I guess that makes sense.
So when I'm giving out an email, I can't say ISC squared. I have to say ISC2 in the email address or in the domain name. And so everybody ultimately was using ISC2.
Yeah.
To the point that they're like, okay, let's just kind of rebrand it to ISC2. So yeah. So no, you're not crazy.
Okay.
It was ISC squared.
I mean, I
still catch myself saying
I thought
ISC
I'd
squared.
been saying it wrong forever. And then I'm like, what? The vice president of the local chapter is saying ISC2. I was like, man, do I feel like a tool.
No. And you'll still see both. Heck, even some of our stuff still has ISC squared.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, knowing now where it came from makes me love it even more. So it's kind of like GIF versus GIF. I'm just gonna ride it out, even though the creator said something different. So,
but they had their security congress was here in Orlando.
Yeah,
and the first thing, as soon as I got my CISSP, and with that being my first certification through ISC2, I immediately went to, CPEs. I got to have CPEs because the way ISC2 does their certifications is one, all of them except their newest certification, you have to have experience.
Yeah.
To get it. So a CISSP has to have 5 years experience in at least 2 of the domains.
Yeah, which is wild.
Yeah. Because they wanted to set that standard of that,
I'm going to hit you with a question now, and I'm going to completely derail this. So that totally makes sense, right? You have to get your CISSP. You need 5 years of experience. Majority of the cyber jobs that say senior say even some of the ones that don't say senior say CISSP. So how does someone new get that?
Yeah.
Right?
So one of the challenges there, this is one of my pet peeves, and I know it's a lot of people's pet peeves.
It is.
Entry-level job and we want a CISSP.
Or 3 years of experience.
Yeah.
How can you do entry level and you want years of experience?
Yeah, it's not entry level if you're asking for experience.
What I've been telling people is if you're in school and you have a friend who has an LLC or a company, just work doing virus updates, doing updates for while you're going to college for cyber, and do things like patch their servers for them. Mm-hmm. Even offer it for free. Go around to local businesses saying, hey, I'm willing to do this. Pay me $1. You just need it validatable that says, yep, this guy got a W-2. Because a lot of companies now, especially due to the fact that nation states starting to infiltrate companies, right? Mm-hmm. That's happening more and more common. To a point where it's a serious problem.
Oh yeah, look at KnowBe4 with the North Korean hacker.
100%. I had a buddy recently. They hired a guy, and all of a sudden he's not really working. He's starting to elevate privileges and starting to do all kinds of stuff. Right. So thankfully they had some insider threat alerting, so they were able to catch it. But that is becoming more and more prevalent. So they're doing these deep background checks. They're requesting all of these things, and it makes it so an entry-level person, it's just I have no other advice to give them other than work for somebody or Yeah. I almost considered starting my own nonprofit LLC specifically to hire people to go to businesses to do patching and do other stuff. But then I realized how much time it takes to do the books. And I was just like, that is a lot of work that I am not willing to do with all the other stuff I do for the cyber community.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that most people, I didn't even realize it until I got involved with ISC2, is you can go take any of the exams, even without the experience.
Oh, I know. Yeah. You can go online and do it now, which is awesome.
And you'll get what's called an associate.
Right.
So you can go sit the CISSP, get the associate credential, and then they give you time to go get the experience.
Yeah.
So you can say, hey, I've got an associate CISSP, but I need more experience under my belt to roll that into the full blown.
Yeah.
And the other thing that especially, and this is something I tried to promote, especially to those going to school, is if you're going to an accredited program, they'll knock 1 year off your requirements.
Ooh, that's cool.
So for example, the SSCP is one of their, it's more kind of like an administrator kind of certification. It only requires 1 year of experience.
Interesting.
So if you come out of school with your IT degree, you could potentially get that 1 year waived, and there's your full
Yeah.
full certification.
The other thing I found interesting about entry-level jobs, because I've helped a few mentees kind of negotiate, I say negotiate salaries, but there was really no negotiation anymore, unfortunately. But you're talking these entry-level gigs are paying 45 grand. Like, they're not paying what I think kids are led to believe.
Yeah.
They're like, wait a minute, hang on. So I have $80,000 in school debt and I'm making as much as I could make as a barista.
Uh-huh.
Like, I mean, Starbucks pays really well.
Yeah. I mean, as you see the hourly rates, I mean,
It's like $20-something an hour.
yeah. I mean, it's getting to where, heck, I mean, my daughter went to school and got her degrees in doing medical stuff.
Yeah.
And she's sitting here watching, the hourly rates, things coming up for, flipping burgers and everything else, and going,
medical and other things.
why'd I spend all my time in school?
Yeah, it's wild.
So I think there's still some balancing that's got to happen.
I feel like
but
if we're going to charge people so ridiculously amount of money to go to college, like for me, like I couldn't afford it. College wasn't an option. Like there was no way. And I refused to go into a huge amount of debt for my life. Like my wife is an educator. She's got $90,000 in student loans. Her max pay was going to be like 45 grand forever.
Yeah.
Right. And that to me is just wild. And you've got these kids who are being sold on millions of cyber jobs going unfulfilled. And I feel like such a monster when they come to me for advice as a mentor. And I'm like, because you know me, the way I mentor is just kind of brutal honesty. Like, I'm just going to tell you like it is. And they go away just like, what did I just spend the last 4 years doing? I thought this would give me a leg up type scenario.
So we're hitting a point where a bunch of factors are culminating together.
Yeah.
And starting to coalesce. You've got the market being the way it is, and people are uneasy.
For sure.
It's like, oh, stock market's doing great.
Right.
Then why did Fridays and Applebee's just filed bankruptcy? Spirit just filed bankruptcy.
Yeah.
I mean, all these places are closing. They're laying off. They're doing that. It's like,
we have 400,000 now in technology that are unemployed.
I mean, the market's going south. Companies are pulling back right now because they're trying to see what's going on, and really kind of, rightfully so, trying to back off and plan to see what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Especially now after the election and everything else, trying to figure out, what's going to be happening over the next few months,
right?
What direction things are going to go in. But then you've got, to your point, on top of that, you've got all these reports coming out, even ISC2 does their workforce study report. And, and they talk to businesses and they basically will ask, forgetting all the monetary side of things and HR side, how many people would you like to have if you could have the number of people you need with the skills?
Right.
And they come out with a number kind of in a vacuum compared to everything else that a business has to think about.
Interesting.
And they end up coming out and they'll say, I think the latest number is something like, oh, there's a 4.5 million, gap in skills.
Interesting.
But
that's just
the problem is that doesn't mean there's 4.5 million jobs.
I didn't actually know that. That's just another factor.
Yeah.
Like I tried to explain to people, there's so many, because it's so easy to get in your head when you're unemployed in this market and to just be depressed and think it's you. But the odds are so against the average worker. There is, I would estimate less than 10% of the jobs on LinkedIn that are posted are actual open jobs.
Yeah.
Most of them are either A, going to be filled by somebody inside, or B, are being posted for tax reasons.
Bingo.
Right.
Yeah, because you tend to notice it a lot of, you'll see layoffs and new positions happening typically around like quarter end marks, year end marks.
They do it on purpose for
because
stuff.
They want the numbers to look good as they go into their reports.
Yeah, it's wild.
And to the point of, just decimating people's morale.
Yeah.
As a part of this.
Even the interview process is so demoralizing in many ways. I'm a person who has very little emotional range, but even I struggled, exponentially from constant rejection.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't even like I was getting offers. I was lucky that I was getting offers because I worked really, really hard on soft skills. And I did a video just recently on LinkedIn where I'm like, if you're not working on soft skills, you are not going to be employed.
Yeah.
Because I feel like we focus so much more on that aspect than we ever have.
Yep.
Because we know that person we hire may be the only hire we get for years.
Yeah.
And then it's interesting too, is because we want these people to have this loyalty to the company and loyalty to the business and ride or die with the company and put in hundreds of hours. I still remember when I was at Disney, I was in a meeting with a bunch of VPs and I was a manager at the time. And one of the other directors called me out and said, if your team just put in another 10, 15 hours a week, they could do a lot more. And I said, have I missed any deadlines? And they said, well, no. And I said, then what's the issue? It's like, well, you could do so much more if you just work them more. And I'm like, yeah, but then I'd have a bunch of angry people who don't want to be there, who don't want to, your angry people don't innovate.
Yeah. Frustrated
people don't innovate. They do the bare minimum to get by. And
they shut down.
Yeah, they shut down. So, but I still remember being in that room and getting just lit up by this director saying that I was doing it wrong. And it turned out his team had gone to HR because Rob's team wasn't working that hard. They were basically saying, why are we having to put in 65 hours when Rob's team only does 40, 45? Well, because Rob knows how to manage his business. Well, and not burn his team down.
Yeah. Well, and what that ultimately does in the long run is you end up spending more time and money because you're going to have more turnover.
100%.
And the amount of time it takes to bring somebody in, especially in a company like Disney.
Yeah.
I can imagine, there's so much you have to know.
For sure.
In a company that size that ramp up time is huge.
6 to 8 months. Easy.
Yeah.
And I joked when I was at Disney, I was there for 19 years. I would say if you weren't there for at least, you stopped being new at 5 years. And that was really a thing that was interesting to me. And the company I'm with now is very similar, where most people have been there for 10, 20 years. And it's been it's been interesting to go from one company like that to another. Ending up where I am now has been just kind of an interesting thing, but I love the people. And I don't work for the job because the job. I work for the job because the people.
Yeah.
When I met my leadership team, that was what sold me. That was the end of it. It feels super weird because they might actually listen to this, but it's factual and it's nothing I haven't told them.
Yeah.
But I feel like so many people go for the job and not necessarily anything else. And I think that's the wrong way to look at things.
I would agree. The job, obviously you want to marry that up with your skills.
Sure.
Because, at least for most people, I know myself and yourself included.
Yeah.
I want to contribute to a company. I want to, help that company do better.
Yeah, we're engineers
do more.
At heart. We have to.
That's just naturally what I want to do. That's what has me interested in a company.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the thing that's going to keep you around in a company or make you want to leave, it's the people.
Yep.
Especially your leader.
Yeah. People don't quit jobs. They quit bosses.
Yeah.
Well, we'll wrap it up here and I'll ask you kind of one more question. What is the one kind of piece of advice that you've been given by a mentor or by someone that you kind of still take with you and still resonates with you to this day?
It for me, it's do what you love. If you're not loving what you're doing, if you're in a position to move.
Yeah.
If you're not, for other various reasons, figure out another avenue through a cybersecurity organization or some other organization or friends or church or whatever to mentally engage in something different
outside of work.
That
was a hard thing for me, was learning that I can get enjoyment. My identity was tied to my job to a point where I believe it was toxic. Because when I lost my job, I felt like I had lost a loved one. Like, I was devastated. And I've told myself that I'm never going to be wrapped into a job like that again. I'm going to be wrapped into people. Like, and that's where my focus is going to be. But man, I appreciate you coming to hang out in my workshop.
Absolutely, man. This is awesome. I can't wait to. I promise I won't touch.
I mean, but
I'm gonna look at everything.
That's totally fine. Most of this stuff is like, I'll just get a whim and I'll be like, I'm gonna build Han Solo and Carbonite, or I'm gonna build this random, weapon that I saw in some video game. It's always fun. But
I've only seen the pictures.
No,
I get to actually see it in person.
I have to fight my social anxiety, even for friends. This is my sanctum. Nobody comes over. So this is pretty rare. But no, I appreciate you coming over.
Well, I am extremely, extremely honored that you would allow me to come into the creation cave.
I sound so arrogant, but it has nothing to do with that. It's like someone is in my space. It's just it's an autistic thing. I'm just going to call it that and blame it on autism.
That's why I brought the sacrifice of Starbucks for you.
It was a great sacrifice. No, man, thanks for your time, brother. Everyone else listening, good luck out there.